Have you ever felt like your energy has been sucked out by someone? Even though you haven't said a word, have you ever noticed that all it takes is a message on your cell phone, a crossed look, or a simple silence for your mood to drop, your chest to tighten, your mind to cloud? This is not an exaggeration, it is a symptom of an exposed soul, vibrating on autopilot, vulnerable to any external vibration. And the worst part, you think this is normal. According to recent neuroscience studies, more than 80% of our emotions are unconscious reactions to invisible stimuli. And Carl Jung already said, as long as you do not make conscious what is in the unconscious, it will govern your life, and you will call it destiny. The truth is brutal. It's not the other that destabilizes you. It's what lives inside you, that connects to the chaos outside. You can spend your life trying to avoid toxic people, harsh environments, and negative conversations. Or you can do something radical. Shield your energy from the inside out in such a profound way that absolutely nothing and no one else can bring you down. Without having to become a monk, disappear into the mountains, or pretend gratitude with a forced smile. This video is a direct, no-nonsense guide for anyone who is tired of being an emotional puppet. You will understand, based on Jung, neuroscience, and ancestral wisdom, how to regain control of your frequency, cut the invisible threads that bind you to suffering, and activate an energetic presence that commands respect without saying a word. If you've come this far, it's not by chance. Take a deep breath, because today you begin to free yourself. And know, this is not just another self-help video with ready-made phrases. It is the map of your energetic liberation. There is an invisible territory within the mind where reality and fantasy intertwine like the roots of an ancient tree. Carl Jung saw this space as a portal between the personal and collective unconscious, where memories, archetypes, and symbolic images shape our spiritual perception. When a person reacts with anger, fear, or sadness, they are often not responding to the now, but to a vibrational echo from the past. All of this pulses in your spiritual energy as if each imagined thought creates waves in the frequency of the soul. What we consider illusion may just be a reflection of what has not been recognized. Fantasy, far from being escapism, is a symbolic map of unhealed wounds. Imagine, for example, someone who lives dreaming of being recognized, acclaimed, admired. It may seem like vanity, but if we look with eyes of ancestral wisdom, we will see a silent cry for belonging. Fantasy is an attempt by the unconscious to balance what the conscious denies. In this sense, it has a practical function within practical. Esotericism, translating the invisible into images that the body as a spiritual channel can feel. Emotional triggers are like sound alarms for the soul. When something out there hits us, it is actually just touching an already existing sensitive key, and the more we repress these impulses, the more intense the energetic presence of these hidden contents becomes. Therefore, on the path to connecting with the invisible, it is vital to observe internal reactions as symbolic messages, not to judge or deny, but to interpret with the same respect we give to an oracle. Jung said that everything that does not become conscious returns as destiny. And that's where the danger of spiritual ignorance lies. Living being guided by internal shadows, believing that the world is against you. But what if all this is just the mental mirror of your own misunderstood fantasies? When someone imagines abandonment, even if everything is fine, it is because the wound of rejection vibrates within them. This spiritual insight changes everything, from judgment to curiosity. Anyone dedicated to popular mysticism knows that the interpretation of signs is a subtle language. The recurring fantasy about a certain situation, such as falling, flying, or losing someone, is not random. It is a symbol with a specific frequency that resonates with internal energy. Paying attention to these signs, like listening to the winds before a storm, is a way of connecting with the invisible. A way of learning from what has not yet become a word, but is already pulsating in the vibrational field. Vibration doesn't lie. Even what we try to hide from ourselves finds ways to emerge, whether through dreams, emotional lapses, or senseless impulses. The body, as a spiritual channel, records everything. Therefore, a fantasy is not something to be discarded, but rather examined like someone opening a mysterious letter. There is ancient wisdom contained within these inner images, just waiting to be read with the eyes of the soul. What if the key to self-knowledge is precisely what you avoid most? The strangest fantasy, the darkest thought, the most uncomfortable emotion. In practical esotericism, integration is the process of accepting all of this and transmuting. A simple exercise. When having an uncomfortable fantasy, ask yourself, what is this image trying to show me about my spiritual energy? The answer will come subtle but powerful. Often, what we call reality is just a collective consensus on what to ignore. Spiritual perception, however, is unique. What you feel to be true, even without external proof, may be more real than any objective fact. Internal fantasies, in this sense, are not lies. They are truths that have not yet been deciphered. Therefore, making space for them with loving attention is also expanding your frequency of consciousness. Now imagine what happens when you start to see every emotional trigger as a door, an opportunity for healing, not a threat. It is precisely here that the next step of the path reveals itself. The deep root of our emotional reactions, what we call pain, but which is often just a symbol that has lost its translation. Most people believe that they suffer because of what happens outside. But the emotional pain doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from what it symbolizes internally. A crossed look, a subtle criticism, a sudden absence. All of this only hurts because it touches an already existing wound. In this invisible game of interpretations, spiritual perception is the lens that colors everything with emotion. And when we don't know the origin, we react like emotional puppets. There is a space between fact and reaction where meaning lives. And it is in this space that ancestral wisdom comes into action. A simple comment can hurt someone deeply, while someone else hears the same thing and feels nothing. Why? Because the first carries an unconscious memory linked to rejection, abandonment, or humiliation. It is the vibration of that memory that activates the pain, not the comment itself. This changes everything. The practice of practical esotericism teaches us not to become victims of the external world. If a situation provokes anger, sadness, or fear, it is a sign that there is a spiritual energy there asking for attention. And the only way to change that is to turn inward. A useful exercise. Every time something affects you, ask yourself, what inside me did this touch? What memory does this sensation carry? This question opens the door to a revealing dive. Emotions are signals, not sentences. They do not come to punish you, but to inform you. Ignoring them is like turning off the fire alarm without putting out the fire. Popular mysticism recognizes emotions as living entities with their own frequency and language. When treated with respect, they become guides. When repressed, they become shadows that drain internal energy and corrode the energetic presence. A common mistake is trying to control external situations to avoid pain. But this only strengthens the illusion of control. True spiritual freedom arises when we understand that healing lies in reframing, not in avoiding. When you change the inner meaning, the world changes with you. And suddenly, what used to destroy you becomes fuel for your awakening. It all depends on the interpretation you choose to carry. The body, as a spiritual channel, feels before the mind understands. Pressure in the chest, a lump in the throat, tension in the shoulders. These are all signs that something needs to be looked at with care. Spiritual energy communicates through subtle symptoms, as if to say, "Hey, this pain isn't new, it's just being reenacted." Learning to listen to this is an act of personal power and reconnection with the ancestral wisdom that lives in every cell. Many emotional reactions have roots in childhood experiences, but carry ramifications in the present. Therefore, it is not a question of finding someone to blame, but of taking energetic responsibility for one's own interpretations. Practical esotericism invites us to transmute, not justify. When something from the past still hurts in the present, it is a sign that there is something there asking for healing and vibrational liberation. When you understand this dynamic, a serene clarity emerges. No one else has the power to hurt you. Unless you surrender that power, spiritual awareness matures when we realize that we are authors of the emotional narrative, not victims of the plot. And with this understanding, a new possibility is born, going to the roots where it all began and transforming the emotional soil where reactions grow. And it is exactly in this soil that the seeds of childhood were planted. There, where we learn to mold ourselves to be accepted, to suppress emotions to be loved. It is there, between the lines of memory, that the next portal lives. Conditioning. From childhood, the invisible mold that defines our reactions before we can even question them. From the first steps, each word, look, or absence left marks on our energy field. What we today call personality was often an unconscious adaptation to environments that did not embrace our essence. The child who learned to keep quiet so as not to disturb is now afraid to express himself. The one who was criticized for making mistakes today trembles at the thought of failing. This is how the deepest vibrational patterns are formed. Ancestral wisdom has always pointed to the first years of life as a sacred phase. It is there that spiritual perception opens like a portal, absorbing everything as truth. The child's spiritual energy is pure, but also vulnerable. If she's told that she is not good enough, it is engraved like an emotional spell that lasts her entire life. Popular mysticism understands this as an enchantment of pain, which can only be broken with awareness and love. Repetition forms the tracks of the mind. If you grew up hearing that you were selfish, stupid, or dramatic, chances are that you still carry those words with you as invisible truths. Practical esotericism teaches that each belief is a frequency. Repeated many times, it becomes a prison. Therefore, identifying what was inherited from childhood is the first step to releasing internal energy and recovering the original energetic presence. A powerful exercise is to write down phrases that you heard a lot as a child and notice how they still influence your reactions today. You are very sensitive. You need to be strong. Don't cry. How many of these beliefs still vibrate within you like secret commands? Bringing this to light is an act of spiritual courage. Reprogramming begins with recognition, and the body as a spiritual channel responds immediately when these memories are received with truth. Many adults live like injured children in large bodies. They are trying to prove their worth, seeking approval, and running away from rejection. And life repeats the same script: abusive relationships, toxic environments, feelings of inadequacy, until we decide to break the pattern. The frequency of conditioning is dense, but it is not definitive. It is possible to dissolve this vibration with conscious healing and self-love practices. The inner child does not want to be cured. She wants to be heard, respected, and integrated. Ignoring it only reinforces the pattern of abandonment. But when you lovingly include it in the present, something magical happens. Spiritual energy realigns, spiritual perception expands, and what was once constant pain turns into vibrational wisdom. Reconnecting with your inner child is the most radical act of self-love there is. School, friends, church, TV, everyone participated in the creation of beliefs that today operate on autopilot. And these beliefs dictate how you feel, react, and relate to the world. Breaking away from this requires energetic presence and a willingness to reprogram the mind, not with force, but with constancy. Visualizations, affirmations, energy baths, and reconnection with the body are simple and effective tools for this process. Nothing changes until the truth comes out, and the truth sometimes hurts. But this pain is the birth of liberation. Questioning what you've always believed about yourself may be uncomfortable at first, but it's the only way to fully access your internal energy. The injured child does not need to be hidden. He needs to be welcomed with the same tenderness that an elder offers his grandson. And it is in this acceptance that the most resistant illusion is shattered, that we are in absolute control of our lives. Because what we call a decision often comes from an invisible script programmed in childhood. And that is why the next portal leads us to reflect on the illusion of control, a belief that keeps us away from true inner peace. The mind loves to think it is in charge, make plans, set goals, repeat self-sufficiency mantras, but in practice, life laughs at these scripts. Neuroscience has already proven most decisions are made unconsciously before consciousness even knows. In other words, the rational self is only the narrator, not the author. Spiritual awareness recognizes this as a natural movement of spiritual energy, something that flows, not something that is controlled. This is a blow to the ego, of course. The idea that we don't control everything may seem scary, but deep down, it's liberating. Popular mysticism has always talked about this with metaphors. The river doesn't need to control the direction, it just needs to trust the bed. When we give up the illusion of control, we access a lighter, more fluid, more connected vibration. And that is where ancestral wisdom reveals itself most clearly. The attempt to control everything is a form of fear disguised as responsibility. We plan obsessively, we worry about scenarios that don't even exist, all to avoid the pain of uncertainty. But this internal struggle drains internal energy like a leaky bucket. Practical esotericism teaches us to exchange control for trust, not in blind faith, but in a spiritual awareness that senses when it is time to act and when it is time to let go. Look around. How many times have the best things in your life happened without warning? How many connections, opportunities, and healings came just when you stopped forcing? This spiritual energy of surrender is not passivity. It is a higher form of vibrational wisdom, where the body as a spiritual channel learns to move along with the flow of life, not against him. Simple practices can help dissolve the illusion of control. Guided meditations, rituals of surrender to the invisible, herbal baths to release mental patterns. All of this helps to release excess psychic tension. An old and effective technique is to write down every day what you are trying to control, then burn the paper with the intention of surrendering. This changes the frequency, creates space. The search for control is linked to a lack of trust in the invisible. But what is life if not a dance between the visible and the hidden? Connecting with the unseen doesn't require you to understand everything. It requires you to feel it. May you recognize when something is out of alignment by your energetic presence, not just by logic. This is true vibrational autonomy. Knowing what to follow even without concrete evidence. The illusion of control is also expressed in emotions. We want to stop feeling angry. We want to control jealousy. We want to force gratitude. But emotion is not forced. She needs to be understood. Real emotional control comes from the space between impulse and response, where you breathe, feel, and choose with awareness. This space is a gift of spiritual perception, and cultivating it is an act of internal alchemy. Ancestral wisdom has always taught that the human being is part of the whole, not the center of it. When we accept this truth, we relax. We stop trying to be gods and start living like wizards. And we don't control the universe, but we learn to read its signals. And it is at this point that the mind opens to the next stage, the mental mirror, where everything we see outside is, in fact, a reflection of what vibrates inside. Life is a mirror that reflects with symbolic precision what is hidden within us. If you attract constant criticism, you may be judging yourself harshly. If you feel invisible, perhaps your energetic presence is in silent mode. This is the basis of the concept of a mental mirror. The external world reveals in images and events the beliefs that vibrate within you. Sign interpretation starts here. It's not about guilt, it's about spiritual perception. The vibration we emit, even without saying anything, organizes our reality. What do you believe about yourself? Who deserves little? That you will always be rejected? That you need to fight to be accepted? These beliefs are like dirt on the mirror, and practical esotericism proposes precisely this, cleaning this mirror to see clearly what is distorted. The first step is to observe repetitive patterns. If you experience the same pain in different scenarios, you are facing a reflection. It could be the same type of relationship, the same conflicts at work, the same financial frustrations. The spiritual energy repeats itself until you learn the lesson, until your frequency changes. And this only happens when the internal cause is illuminated and transmuted. Energy cleaning rituals, such as baths with rosemary and coarse salt, help to clarify the energetic presence. But the true mirror is self-observation without judgment. Writing down emotions, reflecting on triggers, talking to your inner child. These are all ways of polishing the mirror of the mind. Over time, you begin to realize that nothing is working against you. Everything is working in your favor. Cleaning the mental mirror is an ongoing process. Every day, new layers of inherited beliefs, fears, and patterns emerge. Ancestral wisdom invites us to treat this process as spiritual hygiene. Just like we brush our teeth, we also need to brush our thoughts. Internal scanning meditations and golden light visualizations are great daily practices for this. Internal energy responds to everything you consume: words, images, music, environments. All of this influences the mental mirror. Therefore, taking care of what goes into your mind is as important as what comes out of your mouth. The connection with the invisible becomes stronger when you protect your frequency. And this is an act of vibrational sovereignty, a daily commitment to your truth. It's interesting to see how, when you change your beliefs, the world around you begins to transform. People change. Opportunities arise, relationships dissolve or deepen. This isn't magic, it's practical esotericism in action. Reality is malleable when you change from within, and this perception is a watershed. You stop reacting and start co-creating. By accepting that everything outside is a reflection, you stop fighting what happens and starts to investigate what needs attention inside. This is true energy responsibility, and it is also what opens space for the next teaching, neuroplasticity and reprogramming, where science and spirituality come together to prove that yes, it is possible to change your reality, starting with the paths of the mind. The mind is moldable like clay in the hands of a conscious potter. For a long time, it was believed that the brain was static, but neuroscience has proven the opposite. It changes. This is called neuroplasticity, the nervous system's ability to create new connections from experiences, thoughts, and emotions. What few know is that this is deeply spiritual. The vibration you sustain day after day reconfigures your own brain structure. If you spend your life saying, "I'm anxious, nothing goes right for me, I always screw up," you are creating neural trails that repeat themselves like a spell. This forms a frequency field where spiritual energy thickens into repeating patterns. Mental reprogramming begins with language. Change your speech and your mind changes. Change the mind and the energetic presence transforms. It all starts with how you name yourself. Practical esotericism teaches that thinking is a magical act. Every thought is like a beam of light that projects reality. Repetition is the secret. Recurring thoughts carve the mind like rivers carve stone. Creative visualizations, positive affirmations, and mentalization rituals are ancient and modern tools at the same time. They work because they work with vibration, with the spiritual energy of fulfilled desire. Simple practices generate big changes. When you wake up, instead of picking up your cell phone, place your hand on your heart and say, "Today I choose to vibrate with lightness." This reprograms spiritual perception for what will come in the day. A reprogramming notebook is also powerful. Write down phrases every day that cancel limiting beliefs. Example, "I am enough. My value is non-negotiable. I am secure in who I am." Neuroplasticity also responds to environments. A chaotic, noisy, or hostile place activates the defense system and prevents reprogramming. Therefore, taking care of the space where you live and work is an essential part of the process. Scents, sounds, light, plants, everything influences. Internal energy. Ancestral wisdom already did this with altars, smokes, and songs. Today, science only confirms the external shapes the internal. The body as a spiritual channel also participates in this. Moving your body in new ways activates new brain connections. Intuitive dances, mindful walks, practices like yoga or tai chi, all of this helps to open new mental trails. What is done to the body resonates in the mind and vice versa. Reprogramming is complete. It's not just about thinking differently, it's about feeling and living differently. The energetic presence is the first sign that something is changing. You begin to notice more synchronicities, feel more clarity, attract transformative conversations. This is no coincidence. It is the vibrational field adjusting to the new tracks you are creating. It's as if the universe is responding to a new code that you have begun to emit. Of course, the old pattern will endure. The brain, for safety reasons, wants to repeat what it knows. Therefore, in the first few days, the new habit seems strange, forced, or meaningless. But remember, it's like carving a new trail through the woods. At first it seems impossible. After a while it becomes a natural path. Consistency wins, and when the new pattern sets in, the world behaves differently towards you, and it is at this point that you begin to rescue something that was given to others for a long time, your personal power. The next step in awakening is learning to say no, establishing vibrational boundaries, and remembering that your energy is sacred and needs to be protected as such. Many live as if other people's opinions were divine decrees. If someone disapproves, they already feel like they made a mistake. If they don't receive likes, validation, or praise, they sink into self-doubt. This is the silent theft of personal power, a subtle drain of spiritual energy that happens when you disconnect from your truth to fit the expectations of others. Spiritual perception begins to fade when you hide to be accepted. Reclaiming personal power is not an act of aggressiveness, but of energetic presence. It's like turning on an internal light that says, "I am enough." This does not mean being lonely, but being sovereign. Practical esotericism teaches that where your attention goes, your energy goes. If your attention is always on someone else, on what they think, feel, want. You are always out of your mind. And living outside of yourself is moving away from your own frequency. Many give away their own power, trying to please. They say yes when they want to say no. They sacrifice themselves in the name of peace. But this is not peace. It is submission in disguise. Ancestral wisdom said, "He who does not set limits will be limited." Establishing energetic boundaries is an act of love, a powerful ritual. Write down, on paper, everything you have ever done just for fear of displeasure. Then burn it, free yourself. Internal energy strengthens when you honor your desires, not impulsive desires, but the desires of the soul, those who come calmly and clearly. Hearing this requires silence, time, and courage. The connection with the invisible is only fully established when you silence external noise. Meditating, walking alone in nature, writing letters to yourself, all of this helps you hear the voice of your spirit. The body, as a spiritual channel, also sends signals when we are betraying ourselves. Sensations of tightness, anxiety, insomnia. These are all vibrational alarms. When you respect yourself, the body relaxes, the mind calms down, and life begins to respond with more synchronicity and fluidity. Personal power is magnetic. He doesn't need to scream. He just is. Regaining that power requires courage to disappoint, and that's okay. You didn't come to Earth to be nice, you came to be truthful. Popular mysticism says, "He who lives to please dies without knowing himself." The path of authenticity is the only one that leads to true energetic freedom, and that freedom begins when you decide, enough is enough. From now on, I come back to myself. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. It's a workout. It starts by saying no to little things that you used to automatically accept. And little by little, your frequency will increase. Your spiritual energy begins to emit a new signal. I know who I am. And when that happens, even relationships change. Because you no longer attract those who want to shape you, but those who want to set you free. Personal sovereignty is not isolation. It's clarity. It's knowing that you can connect with others without cancelling each other out. It's living in the collective without losing its essence. And it is this balance that sets the stage for the next step. Understanding that energy is personal currency and that you need to learn to invest it wisely. Spiritual energy is the most precious currency in your existence. Every thought, every choice, every emotion is an investment, conscious or not, of your vibrational field. Imagine that every morning you received an invisible bag of gold, vital energy. Throughout the day, you distribute it between tasks, people, conflicts, and thoughts. And when night comes, he realizes he's exhausted, without knowing exactly why. Practical esotericism shows us that this exhaustion often does not come from doing too much, but from donating energy to what has no return. Useless worries, empty conversations, excessive social media, constant internal uncriticism. All of this drains your energetic presence. Knowing where your vibration is being spent is the beginning of true spiritual management. And that requires attention, not effort. Doing a daily energy balance is a powerful exercise. Ask yourself, where did I invest my energy today? What drained me? What recharged me? Write it down. Notice patterns. You will see that certain people function as black holes, while others are sources. Some activities drain, others elevate. This spiritual perception gives you the power of choice. And whoever chooses with conscience lives with vibrational sovereignty. In popular mysticism, it has always been taught that those who do not honor their energy end up getting sick, because the soul screams where the body is silent. A simple ritual. At the end of the day, close your eyes and say out loud, I call back all the energy I left where it no longer belongs to me. Repeat 3 times. Feel as if invisible threads return to your field. This cleans and protects. Internal energy is not infinite. Therefore, we learn to prioritize. Not everything needs an answer. Not every invitation needs a yes. Not every crisis needs to be resolved by you. Sometimes the cure is to withdraw gracefully and quietly. The connection with the invisible shows you that when your vibration is intact, the world perceives you differently and start treating you with the respect you finally gave yourself. Another powerful practice. Choose 1 day a week to fast from unnecessary interactions. No cell phones, TV, news, random conversations. Just you, your energy, your frequency. Read something sacred, walk, write. This vibrational fast clears the field. It causes the energetic presence to be re-established and the body as a spiritual channel to breathe in peace. Just like money, energy needs planning. If you wake up dumping everything on everyone, you end the day in the red. Learn to invest your energy like a wise investor in activities that nourish, relationships that uplift, thoughts that heal. Ancestral wisdom said, whoever wastes energy loses his soul in small daily deaths. Strong words and true. Over time, you begin to realize that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's spiritual maturity. And then something changes. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a healer of your own frequency. And with this clarity, a new stance is born, that of sovereignty. The ability to live from your deepest truth without asking the world for permission, and it is this state of being that takes us to the next level of awakening, sovereignty and self-confidence. Where intuition guides, limits are clear, and freedom is not just a concept, but a lived vibrational field. Sovereignty is not authority over others, it is authority over oneself. It's living aligned with your own frequency, without molding yourself to fear, pressure, or other people's opinions. It is the spiritual energy of those who are tired of living according to the external. Spiritual perception expands when you understand that you do not need authorization to be who you are. The world only respects those who respect themselves. First, self-confidence is not born from perfection, but from intimacy with one's own truth. When you know your lights and shadows, you don't have to pretend. It can be whole, and this wholeness vibrates strongly. The body as a spiritual channel responds. You walk differently, speak clearly, say yes with presence, and no firmly. Practical esotericism calls this spiritual magnetism. You don't buy it, you don't copy it, you cultivate it. Limits are not walls, they are portals. They show where the other person ends and you begin, where your energy needs to be preserved. Many people are afraid to set limits because they fear rejection. But ancestral wisdom teaches that those who respect their limits are those who most attract true connections, because those who live without borders live vulnerable to external chaos, and it drains the soul. Sovereignty also lies in listening to intuition. That silent whisper that says, not this way, wait a little longer, go now. How many times have you ignored that voice and regretted it later? The connection with the invisible goes through this listening. It is not a gift for a few, it is an ability for those who silence the external noise to listen to the sacred that lives within. Practices to develop self-confidence. Walking every day in the sun without a cell phone, looking into your own eyes, in the mirror, and saying, I trust myself, writing letters to your future self. These are simple actions that reinforce the vibration of internal truth. The energy field responds to these gestures with clarity. It begins to attract people and situations that resonate with its new vibration. Sovereignty is not arrogance. It is rootedness. It's knowing that you have value even when no one applauds. It's dancing your dance even when no one understands the music. This pose elevates your spiritual energy and expands your spiritual perception. And over time, you start to move more lightly because you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Of course, there will be tests, situations that will challenge you, people who will doubt you, moments of doubt. But those who live in sovereignty do not lose themselves. It may wobble, but it won't break, because it is anchored, and that anchor is loyalty to yourself. Nothing is worth more than that. Neither success, nor applause, nor acceptance. With this self-confidence vibrating strong, the path opens to the deepest reconnection of all, with nature and with one's own being. Because, deep down, it is by returning to our roots that we find our true center. The human soul was not made to live locked between walls, drowned in notifications and distanced from the cycle of the sun. Since ancient times, human beings have known there is an ancestral wisdom that can only be accessed with bare feet on the earth and the heart aligned to the rhythm of heaven. Reconnecting with nature is not just an act of rest, but of vibrational healing. It is to restore the energetic presence that has been drained by rush and disconnection. The spiritual energy of the earth pulses in silence, and whoever learns to listen to this rhythm completely changes its frequency. Popular mysticism has always taught that a walk at dawn, a bath in the river, or simply sitting in the shade of a tree is medicine for the body as a spiritual channel. Nature reminds us of what is essential. No tree is in a hurry. No river forces itself to run faster. They just are. And that's the lesson. Spiritual perception is refined when we silence ourselves, and nature offers the deepest silence, not the silence of absence, but of fullness. When lying on the grass, looking at the stars, or listening to birdsong, something inside us aligns. It is as if the soul, forgotten for so long, finally sighs in relief. You don't need to understand everything. You need to feel. Nature demands nothing. It just gives back. Simple practices restore this bond. Walk for 20 minutes without headphones, take care of a plant with presence, sleep with the window open to hear the rain. These are small rituals of reconnection with the invisible, because nature is the temple where internal energy is effortlessly recharged, and this activates a vibration that is not found in books, but in the earth, wind, and water. Ancestral wisdom knew that the body is an extension of nature. Therefore, respecting your cycles is also spirituality. Respect sleep, tiredness, true hunger. Observe the seasons and their effects on mood, libido, and thoughts. We are not machines, we are cosmos in motion. And when we treat ourselves with this reverence, our energetic presence blooms like spring after winter. Reconnecting with the self is inseparable from reconnecting with the whole, because the deep self is not in the racing mind, but in the calm vibration of now. Meditating outdoors, doing digital fasts, writing to the sound of birds. All of this sharpens spiritual perception, and you start to remember, I am part of it all. I am sacred as the sun, necessary as water, free as the wind. Stagnant spiritual energy dissolves into natural movement. Therefore, moving with nature, and to waking up with the sun, sleeping with the moon, eating live foods is a sure way to restore lost balance. The earth heals, fire transforms, water purifies, the air releases. Each element has a vibration, and when we tune into them, our frequency rises in harmony. The body as a spiritual channel regenerates when you align yourself with nature. The heart slows down. The mind clears. Emotions organize themselves. You stop living in reaction and start living in contemplation. Not as escape, but as wisdom. Because those who observe deeply act with precision, and that is the greatest gift of reconnection. living with presence, with purpose, and with peace. And it is with this high vibrating peace that we end the path started way back, with Jung, with internal fantasies, with mental mirrors. And now, with your feet planted on the ground and your spirit free, you are ready to rewrite your energetic story.